Deep in the Bay of Bengal, hidden beneath a canopy of dense tropical forest, lives a people who have rejected the modern world. For thousands of years, they have remained isolated on a small island, defending their shores against all outsiders. They are the Sentinelese, and they may be the most isolated tribe on Earth. North Sentinel Island, a tiny speck in the Andaman archipelago, barely larger than Manhattan. From above, it appears peaceful, pristine beaches ringed by coral reefs, dense jungle covering the interior. But this island holds a mystery that has fascinated anthropologists for over a century. Who are the Sentinelese? How long have they lived here? And why do they violently reject all contact with the outside world? What we know about the Sentinelese is remarkably little. They have no written language that we're aware of. They've never been studied up close. Every attempt at peaceful contact has been met with hostility. We don't even know what they call themselves. Sentinelese is simply the name outsiders gave them, derived from their island home. The island itself measures roughly 8 kilometers long and 7 kilometers wide. It's covered in tropical rainforest, surrounded by coral reefs that make approach dangerous. The Sentinelese have lived here for an estimated 50 to 60,000 years, making them one of the last remaining cultures from the first human migrations out of Africa. They are, in a very real sense, living representatives of our ancient past. From the few brief observations made from boats and helicopters, we've learned fragments about their way of life. They are hunter-gatherers. They fish in the shallow waters around their island. They appear to have fire, though whether they can create it or only maintain it is unknown. Their weapons are simple but effective: bows and arrows, spears. Their technology has remained essentially unchanged for millennia. There are estimated to be between 50 and 500 Sentinelese living on the island today. The exact number is impossible to know. They avoid being counted. They avoid being seen when possible, and they've made it abundantly clear they want to be left alone. The first recorded contact attempt came in 1867, when a British colonial expedition landed on the island. They found recently abandoned villages, but no people. The Sentinelese had seen them coming and vanished into the forest. This pattern would repeat itself throughout history. In 1880, a British naval officer named Maurice Vidal Portman led an armed group onto the island. They captured 6 Sentinelese, an elderly couple and 4 children. Portman took them to Port Blair, the administrative center of the Andaman Islands. Within days, the elderly couple died. Their immune systems, having never encountered diseases from the outside world, couldn't cope. Realizing the disaster they'd caused, the British returned the 4 children to the island with gifts. What those children told their people about the outside world, we can only imagine. But this encounter may explain much about the Sentinelese's subsequent hostility. For decades after, the island was largely left alone. Occasionally, ships would wreck on the surrounding reefs. In 1981, a cargo ship called the Primrose ran aground. The crew watched nervously as Sentinelese warriors gathered on the beach, bows drawn. For days, the crew radioed desperately for rescue, while the Sentinelese attempted to reach the stranded ship at low tide. Helicopters eventually airlifted the crew to safety, but the incident reinforced the tribe's reputation for violence. In 1991, something remarkable happened. An Indian anthropologist named Triloknath Pandit, who had been attempting contact for years, finally succeeded in making peaceful contact. For the first time, Sentinelese people came down to the beach and accepted coconuts without hostility. This seemed like a breakthrough. Over several visits, small groups of Sentinelese would wade into shallow water to collect coconuts and other gifts, but the contact was always limited, always on their terms. They never allowed anyone onto the beach. They never let anyone into their forest. And in 1996, they suddenly stopped even these limited interactions. The brief window of contact closed as mysteriously as it had opened. The Indian government, recognizing the dangers of disease transmission and respecting the tribe's wishes, officially ceased all contact attempts. The Sentinelese made headlines again in 2004, following the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami. The massive waves swept across the Andaman Islands, and many feared the Sentinelese had been wiped out. The Indian Coast Guard flew helicopters over North Sentinel Island to assess the damage. As the helicopter approached, a Sentinelese man emerged from the forest and fired arrows at the aircraft. The tribe had survived. Their ancient knowledge of the sea and forest had saved them. In November 2018, the world's attention turned to North Sentinel Island once more. An American missionary named John Allen Chow attempted to visit the island to preach Christianity to the Sentinelese. Despite multiple warnings and the illegality of his mission, he made several approaches to the island. On his final attempt, he was killed by the tribe. His body was never recovered. The incident sparked international debate about uncontacted tribes, religious missions, and the rights of isolated peoples to remain isolated. The Indian government maintains a strict exclusion zone around North Sentinel Island. It's illegal to approach within 3 nautical miles. This policy protects both the Sentinelese and potential visitors. The tribe has no immunity to common diseases. A simple cold could devastate their population. Even measles or influenza, minor illnesses to us, could be fatal to them. But the protection is also ethical. The Sentinelese have made their wishes abundantly clear. They do not want contact. They have chosen isolation. And in a world where isolated cultures are vanishing at an alarming rate, their choice deserves respect. What can we learn from the Sentinelese without disturbing them? They represent something increasingly rare in our interconnected world: complete cultural autonomy. They have never been colonized, never been converted, never been integrated into the global economy. They live according to traditions that stretch back tens of thousands of years, unbroken by outside influence. Their survival skills are extraordinary. They've weathered tsunamis, cyclones, and centuries of potential contact, all while maintaining their way of life. They know their island intimately, every tree, every reef, every fishing ground. This knowledge, passed down through countless generations, has kept them alive in an environment that would challenge any modern person. Some argue that we have a moral obligation to contact the Sentinelese, to bring them medicine, education, and the benefits of modern civilization. But history teaches us a different lesson. Every time isolated, tribes have been contacted, the results have been catastrophic. Disease kills many. Cultural disintegration follows. Within 1 or 2 generations, ancient ways of life disappear forever. The neighboring Andaman tribes provide a tragic example. The Great Andamanese once numbered in the thousands across several islands. After British colonization and forced contact, their population collapsed. Today, fewer than 60% survive. Their language is nearly extinct, their traditional culture mostly lost. The Jarawa, another Andamanese tribe that resisted contact longer, have faced similar challenges since increased interaction with outsiders began. The Sentinelese have witnessed these transformations. From their island, they can occasionally see boats, helicopters, the modern world passing by. They've chosen to reject it. This choice, maintained across countless generations, shows remarkable cultural cohesion and determination. But their isolation also faces modern threats. Climate change is raising sea levels, threatening to submerge parts of their island. Illegal fishing boats occasionally venture too close to their waters, risking violent encounters. Poachers seeking valuable fish and sea cucumbers ignore the exclusion zone. The Indian Coast Guard patrols the area, but the vast ocean makes complete enforcement impossible. There's also the question of what happens if a Sentinelese person becomes seriously ill or injured. Do we have an obligation to offer medical help? Or would CH intervention violate their sovereignty? These questions have no easy answers. The Indian government's current policy is clear: no contact unless the Sentinelese themselves initiate it and request assistance. What will happen to the Sentinelese in the future? Their population is small, possibly too small for long-term genetic viability. Inbreeding could become a serious problem over generations. Natural disasters could devastate their limited numbers. Rising seas could make their island uninhabitable within a century, yet they have survived for 60,000 years. Through ice ages and warming periods, through tsunamis and cyclones, through the rise and fall of civilizations around them, they have endured. They possess knowledge and resilience we can barely comprehend. Perhaps the most important lesson from the Sentinelese is about diversity. Not just biological diversity, but cultural diversity. Just as we work to preserve endangered species, we must also preserve endangered ways of life. The Sentinelese represent a completely different approach to human existence, one that values community, tradition, and harmony with nature over technological advancement and material accumulation. They remind us that modernity is not inevitable, that progress is not universal, and that there are multiple valid ways to be human. In a world increasingly homogenized by globalization, where local cultures disappear into a global monoculture, the Sentinelese stand as a defiant alternative. Their story also challenges our assumptions about isolation. We tend to view contact and connection as inherently good. Isolation is backward or primitive. But the Sentinelese have chosen their isolation consciously, repeatedly, over generations. They've had opportunities to engage with the outside world and have consistently chosen not to. Who are we to say they're wrong? Some speculate about what the Sentinelese know that we don't. Living in balance with their environment for thousands of years, they've developed deep ecological knowledge. They survived the 2004 tsunami, when many modern communities with all our technology did not. They live without pollution, without resource depletion, without the stress and alienation that plague modern societies. Perhaps they understand something about sustainable living that we've forgotten. The beaches of North Sentinel Island remain empty of footprints, except those of the Sentinelese themselves. The forests echo with languages no outsider understands. The nights are dark, unpolluted by artificial light, filled with stars and the sounds of the jungle. This is their world, and they are its guardians. As climate change accelerates, as the ocean rises, as the modern world presses closer, the future of North Sentinel Island remains uncertain. But for now, the Sentinelese endure. They fish their reefs, hunt their forests, raise their children in traditions stretching back before recorded history. They are the world's most isolated PE. Opal by choice, not by accident. And in that choice lies a profound statement about human diversity, sovereignty, and the right to determine one's own destiny. The Sentinelese have spoken clearly, not with words we understand, but with actions impossible to misinterpret. Their message is simple: this is our home, our way of life, and we choose to keep it. In respecting their choice, we honor not just the Sentinelese, but the principle that different ways of being human are equally valid. We acknowledge that our modern world, for all its achievements, is not the only path, and perhaps not always the best path. The story of the Sentinelese is not over. It continues every day on a small island in the Bay of Bengal, lived by people who have never read these words and never will. They are writing their own story in their own way, in a language and culture that predates our oldest civilizations. And perhaps that is exactly as it should be. In a world where everything is known, mapped, and connected, where privacy and autonomy grow increasingly rare, the Sentinelese remain free. Free to live as their ancestors lived, free to make their own choices, free to be left alone. That freedom is precious. It's a reminder that in the vast tapestry of human existence, there is room for mystery, for difference, for the unknown. The Sentinelese teach us that some doors should remain closed, some questions unanswered, some people left in peace. And so North Sentinel Island sits in the Bay of Bengal, wrapped in jungle and mystery, home to people who have looked at the modern world and said no. In that refusal lies their power, their dignity, and their enduring message to all of us. That being human means having the right to choose your own path, even if that path leads away from everyone else.